I happily took my girlfriend home to meet my parents. However, my father firmly opposed. Under my pressing questioning, my father helplessly told me that my girlfriend was a woman he was keeping. I have a girlfriend and took her home to meet the elders. I originally wanted to set a wedding date. But my father was smoking with a solemn expression and said, "Son, I have something to tell you. Your girlfriend is not good. Find a time to break up with her." I was instantly puzzled. My girlfriend, Nancy, is beautiful. She is 1.68 meters tall and has a good figure. All my buddies envy me for finding such a good girlfriend. It's not easy for me to find someone I like, but how come my father objected just by taking one look? Dad, what do you mean? What's wrong with her? You can raise your objections. But asking me to break up right away? Why? Nancy is well-read and reasonable, and she is also beautiful. Although she comes from a single-parent family, her economic situation is also above average. I really can't understand why my father doesn't agree with us being together. I saw my father furrow his brows, and his expression was more serious and solemn than I had ever seen. No means no. There's not so many whys. For so many years, my father has always been a reasonable person and has never been so arbitrary, especially when it comes to my marriage. Could it be that he has some difficulties? I also became serious and took a step forward. Dad, is our family facing some difficulties? Are you worried about the betrothal gifts and the house? If there's anything, tell me. I still have some private savings. I can arrange the wedding myself. It's not like that. Before I could finish, my father interrupted me. His expression was complex as if he was holding something back. It has nothing to do with money or the family. Is it that my mother doesn't agree? No. He sighed. Don't ask anymore. Just break up. This is not it, and that is not it. So it just means it's not okay? I also got angry and was furious. Dad, she is the woman I like the most in my life. If you don't tell me why, I'll leave now. I'll move out and live with her. There's a reason for murder and arson. Telling me to break up just like that? Even if you are my own father, it won't do. My father was so angry that he was speechless. He paced back and forth in the yard. After walking about 10 steps, he gritted his teeth and motioned for me to follow him back into the house to talk. We came to the study. After closing the door, my father smoked a whole cigarette before saying, "Your girlfriend. She is a woman I have been keeping for several years. According to seniority, you should even call her your little mother." Little mother? I was so angry that I laughed. Dad, are you kidding? She and I have been together for 2 years. She doesn't even have a male friend usually. Even if you don't want us to be together, there's no need to find such a reason. My father sighed and took out his mobile phone and handed it to me. Look for yourself. At the moment I saw the photos on the mobile phone, I was like being struck by lightning. I froze. The woman with a bright smile in the photo was hugging my father and giving him a kiss. And that woman's face is clearly Nancy. How is this possible? The two people's actions are intimate and natural. It's definitely not a posed photo. I suddenly swayed and my face turned deathly pale. With a plop, the mobile phone also fell to the ground. At this moment, even if I didn't believe it anymore, I had to admit that Nancy had cheated. And the person she cheated with was actually my father. I slumped into a chair, my mind going blank. To be honest, Nancy's conditions are not bad. She is like a flower on a high mountain. If my conditions were a bit worse, I definitely wouldn't be worthy of her. But our family is still relatively well off. My father started a factory from scratch. It is said that when men have money, they become restless. I have thought that my father might find a woman outside, but I never expected that my father and I would fall for the same woman. A woman. For a moment, I didn't know whose head this green hat should be put on. But Nancy doesn't seem like a materialistic girl at all. Could it be that I really didn't understand her in these 2 years? I carefully recalled the details of getting along with Nancy. In fact, I met her in a bar. At that time, I was drinking alone. She came over and took the initiative to talk to me. I still remember that she was wearing a slim skirt, high heels, and showing a pure and seductive look. Even now when I think about it, my heart still flutters. She stood in front of me with a glass of wine. "Little brother, you look unfamiliar. Is this your first time here?" No woman has ever taken the initiative to me before in my life. This is the first time, and she is still a great beauty. I was so excited that I couldn't even speak clearly. In order not to be embarrassed, I simply said, "I think you look unfamiliar too." She generously clinked glasses with me, strangers at first, friends later. At that time, I felt that the highlight moment of my life was coming. After pretending to be aloof for a while, we got familiar with each other and left our contact information at that time. Later, it really was strangers at first, friends later. Before long, we confirmed our relationship. She is more generous and sweet than I imagined. Although this is my first love, I think she is the one for me in this life. I never expected that she would have a relationship with my dad. Could it be that she was already involved with my dad at that time? And I am actually that unlucky successor. How long have you known each other? For several years. My dad wanted to say something, but in the end, how long have you known each other? For several years. My dad wanted to say something, but in the end he just sighed. You should break it off earlier. My face turned even more blue and black. My dad saw my embarrassment, patted me on the shoulder, picked up the phone and left. I returned to my room, threw myself on the bed, and my head was buzzing. Many details that I didn't notice before are extremely clear at this moment. Although Nancy is a recent college graduate, she usually has delicate makeup, and her clothes and bags are all famous brands. I remember once when I planned to buy her a limited edition lipstick set, but she said that someone had already bought it for her abroad. At that time, I thought she had asked someone to buy it on behalf of her. Now that I think about it, there are all doubts. As a college student, with an upper-middle-class family, how can she live so delicately? But now when I think about it, my heart can't help but skip a beat. Besides someone buying it for her, what else could it be? Thinking that Nancy was with my dad and then came to provoke me? My mind is in a mess. I picked up my phone and wanted to call Nancy, but I still didn't dial. Some things should be made clear in person. So, I made an appointment with Nancy to meet at a restaurant the next day. I almost didn't sleep all night. When Nancy saw me, she asked me worriedly, "Did you stay up all night playing games yesterday? Why are your dark circles so heavy?" When Nancy saw me, she asked me worriedly, "Did you stay up all night playing games yesterday?" But thinking that she had that kind of relationship with my dad, and she could still pretend to be so calm when she saw my dad yesterday, I instantly felt that she was deep-minded and full of tricks, and I felt a sense of disgust in my heart. But I really couldn't ask the words, "Are you the woman my dad has kept for several years?" I could only take a sip of my drink and find an excuse. "It's nothing. I just had a little insomnia." Nancy continued to press me, "Why are you having insomnia? Are you in a bad mood? Could it be that you were dissatisfied with your family yesterday?" My hand holding the drink tightened. Taking the opportunity, I asked, "Nancy, what do you think of my parents?" Nancy was stunned for a moment and said, "They are very nice and kind." That subtle expression made my heart suddenly turn cold. Having been with my dad for several years, how could she not be kind? My face became even more unsightly. Nancy became a little anxious and asked, "Ethan, what's wrong with you? Why are you so strange today?" I shook my head and tentatively said, "I didn't sleep well yesterday. I dreamed that for some special reason, we didn't make it." "Oh, just because of this?" Nancy let out a sigh of relief and even pinched my face. "It's just a dream. Why do you take it so seriously?" She wasn't even curious about what the special reason was? Either Nancy is too deep in her ways or she has already seen through me completely and knows that I can't escape from her palm. I smiled bitterly, feeling that there was already a green light on top of my head. Maybe some things in the dream are a reflection of reality? Nancy scooped up a spoonful of dessert and didn't care, saying, "Don't worry. Dreams are the opposite. Don't think about it anymore." She ended this topic so lightly. I really can't tell my suffering. Just then, Nancy's phone rang. She turned sideways to pick up the bag on the chair and took out her phone. At a glance, I saw that bag, a limited edition of Hermes. I had also thought about buying it for Nancy, but the nearby stores were out of stock, so it was left unsettled. Unexpectedly, Nancy didn't lack this at all. Nancy lowered her head to reply to WeChat. She looked serious and unconsciously revealed a sweet smile. This became very glaring in my eyes. After Nancy replied to the message, she met my scrutinizing gaze and couldn't help asking, "What's wrong with you?" I said scrutinizingly, "When you came out to eat with me before, you never replied to messages." Nancy said, "This is just because there is an important matter occasionally." "Why are you so sensitive?" "Am I sensitive?" "Now it's me who is sensitive." Suppressing the anger in my chest, I asked, "Seeing that you have been rather cold to me recently, I thought you had encountered something. Who were you messaging just now?" Nancy seemed to realize something. She leaned over half of her body and comfortingly touched my head. "So it's because you think I'm being cold to you. No wonder you are so fierce today. I'll pay attention in the future, okay?" Such an action reminds me of petting a pet or a child. So good at coaxing people. If she were to be my stepmother, she should also be like an adult. My hand clenched slightly under the table. My heart was extremely bitter. I asked again, "Who were you messaging just now?" "A friend from abroad." As she said this, she paused. "Not just a friend. More like family. I'll introduce you to them when there is a chance. Now is not the time." This sentence only increased my suspicion. Besides her and her mother and her family, who else is there that I don't know? If not now, then when? Anger was almost about to burn away my reason. I shifted my gaze to her bag and asked almost with a pale face, "Your bag is a limited edition, right? It's very hard to buy, right?" Nancy smiled. "This one? It was given by someone else." My heart was completely chilled. Who is so generous to give her such an expensive bag? 9 times out of 10, it's my dad. For the rest of this meal, I can't remember how I finished it. Seeing that I didn't like to talk, Nancy just ate quietly and didn't take it seriously. After having a meal, she took me to the park for a walk. The sky was clear and the breeze was blowing gently. Nancy walked beside me, taking pictures and talking to me at the same time. When passing by a flower bed, Nancy aimed the camera at us. "Ethan, let's take a group photo." My eyebrows twitched. What? Isn't taking pictures with my dad enough? But I still didn't refuse. On the screen, one of us had a sweet smile while the other was full of worry. When she found a good angle, she was about to lean over and kiss my face. That angle and posture were almost exactly the same as the group photo my dad showed me. I felt disgusted in my heart and immediately turned my face away. Nancy didn't kiss me and put down her phone. She asked strangely, "Ethan, what's wrong with you today? You're so strange. Didn't you used to like taking group photos with me the most?" "I used to like it the most, but I don't like you kissing me with the mouth that has kissed someone else's face and taking the same photo." I couldn't hold it in anymore and pushed Nancy away forcefully. "Do you like taking these face-kissing photos with everyone?" Pushed by me, Nancy staggered a step and her face turned pale instantly. "Ethan, what do you mean?" "What do I mean?" "Nancy, can you stop pretending?" I had a fire burning in my heart and it burst out uncontrollably. "Let me be direct. Are you really my stepmother?" "What?" Nancy's eyes widened instantly and she looked confused. "What do you mean? I don't understand." Looking at her acting skills that could win an Oscar, I sneered angrily. "Nancy, stop acting. Tell me yourself. Do you have an improper relationship with my dad?" Slap. As soon as I finished speaking, Nancy slapped me hard. She glared at me with bloodshot eyes and trembled violently all over. "Ethan, you bastard." After slapping me, Nancy's hand was still shaking. She turned around with red eyes and left. Looking at her angrily leaving back, I was even more convinced of my own thought. Nancy must have been exposed by me and became angry out of shame. I sat in the park all afternoon before I returned home in a daze. Back in my room, I took out my phone and saw that there was an unread message from Nancy. if you want to break up with me, you don't need to find such a reason. I agree. Let's break up. I was still angry and even more admiring of this woman's shamelessness and ability to quibble. Having an affair with 2 people and still being able to bite back. Break up then. I was really blind to be with you. I've wanted to break up for a long time. After sending the message, I threw my phone aside and buried myself in the quilt. Thinking about every moment between me and her, I couldn't help but tremble on my shoulders. 2 years of relationship ended just like this. Like a farce. After this, I had no more intersection with Nancy. 05 these days, it was as if a stone had been thrown into my heart. It was stuffy and blocked in my chest. I couldn't say it and couldn't vent it. I broke up with Nancy. Will my dad continue with her? I couldn't think about it and didn't want to think about it. For a whole half-month, except for eating and drinking, I stayed in my room. My dad could tell that I was lovelorn, but after all, he couldn't say anything. Only my mom was extremely worried. She planned several times to look for Nancy but was stopped by me. My mom asked puzzledly, "Son, you really broke up with Xiaojiang? Why? That girl is so nice." I bit my lip and refused to say anything. We just aren't suitable. My dad, who was sitting aside in a daze, took 2 deep puffs of his cigarette. After a week of being lost in despair, I came to the bar where I first met Nancy and got drunk. It wasn't because I missed Nancy so much, but because I didn't want to stay at home in a decadent way and make my mom feel bad. But who would have thought that as soon as I arrived at the bar and before I even had a chance to sit down, I saw Nancy. She was sitting at the bar drinking, carrying a Gucci bag on her body and wearing an expensive watch on her wrist. Her outfit was a complete departure from her previous sweet style. She was dressed in a hot and sexy outfit, revealing her long, fair thighs. She was indescribably beautiful and charming. A sour feeling welled up in my chest. Did Dad buy her a bag again? With doubts in my heart, I dialed Dad's phone. My dad quickly picked up the phone. "Hello, son. What's up?" "Dad," I hesitated. My voice trembled a little, but I still asked, "Did you buy her a new bag again?" Although I didn't mention Nancy by name directly, my dad still replied quickly, "How is that possible? Son, I'm not the kind of person who steals someone else's girlfriend. I haven't contacted her for a long time." Then he lowered his voice and emphasized, "I already know about your relationship with her. How could I still have an ambiguous relationship with her? What's wrong with you, son? Did you contact her again or what?" "Nothing, Dad. I just asked." "Don't worry. I'll hang up first." Before my dad could ask in detail, I hung up the phone directly and stared fixedly at Nancy's back, my eyes seemingly about to shoot out fire. Not bought by my dad? Did she find a new sugar daddy? So shameless. It suddenly occurred to me that when she was with my dad, she could find a backup. Then when she was with me, why couldn't she? Having an affair with 2 people at the time was just a common occurrence for Nancy. I was furious and rushed over to grab Nancy's arm. "Nancy, did you already find a new person long ago? Are this bag, watch, and clothes all bought for you by someone?" When Nancy saw it was me, she was stunned for a moment. She shook off my hand and then gave me a contemptuous glance. There was still a mocking smile on the corner of her lips. She got up and was about to leave. Although she didn't say anything, from her eyes, I felt a strong sense of mockery and disgust. "Nancy, stop right there." I stepped in front of her. "Explain clearly. Did you have an affair when you were with me?" As soon as I said this, the bar fell silent. A crowd of onlookers all tilted their heads to watch the excitement. Nancy's face turned pale. Her expression changed from contempt to anger and pity. She was about to leave by going around me. How could I endure such humiliation? I raised my arm and uncontrollably hit her. Unexpectedly, just at that moment, my hand was suddenly grabbed. It was a tall and handsome man. While blocking me, he pulled Nancy behind him. Hitting a woman? Nancy was startled and hid behind the man like a little bird. This scene almost hurt my eyes. I have to say, this man is not bad looking. The aura he exudes is almost impossible to look directly at. Even I, who am so confident, have to admit that he is more charming than me. But I still didn't want to admit defeat and concede in public. I also grabbed his arm and said fiercely, "What? Playing the hero to save the beauty? This is between me and her. Mind your own business." Nancy had never seen me lose my temper. She was completely shocked. Her eyes looking at me were even more guarded and disgusted. The tall man was not afraid at all. "You can't beat me. Leave here now. I won't fight with you." When I heard this, I became even more furious. Judging from my strength, I really couldn't beat this man, but that didn't mean I couldn't fight back with words. I suddenly shook off the man's arm. "You're the man who is keeping her, right? Truly, a jerk and a slut are together. Do you know how slutty this woman is? Are you with her even though she has affairs with several people?" After being scolded like this, the tall man was also about to lose his temper. He took 2 steps closer to me with a stern voice. "Watch your mouth. Stay away from her. If you talk nonsense again, I'll make you unable to speak." When he was speaking, a layer of fierceness appeared on his face. My legs tightened, and I didn't dare to make a sound. Then, the man asked Nancy 2 questions. Nancy just shook her head and pulled his arm to leave. When I saw them leaving, I subconsciously wanted to chase after them, but I was nailed to the spot by the man's warning look. And from beginning to end, Nancy didn't give me a single glance or look at me. I was so angry that I wanted to hit someone, but I didn't dare to do it. I could only watch the 2 of them leave hand in hand. This Nancy really opened my eyes. She found a new partner right after breaking up. This is clearly someone she was dating before we broke up. Okay, she's really capable. I was really blind to fall for such a flirtatious woman. 06 I was so angry that I couldn't sleep well for days and nights. My dad noticed that something was wrong with me and wanted to ask me several times, but I managed to fob him off. It took quite a few days for my anger to subside. My spirit is a bit better than before, and I have recognized the fact that I was cheated on. There's nothing to say about being momentarily wrong. I packed my things and prepared to go to work, wanting to return to my previous life. I thought this matter would just pass like this, but unexpectedly, there was a reversal. On this day, when I was resting at home, my dad suddenly called me. On the phone, my dad's voice was a bit weak. "Son, have you had no contact with your ex-girlfriend at all recently?" I sat up groggily. "Yes. Can't you get back together?" He asked again. "Get back together?" I thought it was my dad who broke up with her. Feeling a bit helpless, I said, "Dad, even if you lose contact with her, I can't go back to her. What's wrong with you?" As a result, my dad stammered and said, "Son, there may be a mistake in one thing. The woman I've been keeping for several years went abroad half a year ago. I just got in touch with her these 2 days. Only then did I know that your ex-girlfriend is not my girlfriend, but the twin sister of my girlfriend." My voice rose by 8 degrees all of a sudden. "What?" I seemed to have been poured a basin of cold water from head to toe, and my whole body was numb. "What's going on here?" My dad explained. "You never mentioned her name before. I always called her Xiaojiang. Of course I thought it was the same person. Her younger sister is named Jiangxi. If you had told me her full name earlier, it would be fine." I couldn't listen to a single word at all. As soon as I hung up the phone, I dialed Nancy. However, I found that I had been blocked by Nancy. Neither WeChat nor phone number could I get in touch. It's also my fault that I haven't verified it in person for so long. I just believed whatever my dad said. At this moment, I am extremely remorseful. Moreover, that day, I also said that there was something between her and that man. Maybe it was also a misunderstanding. Since I couldn't get through to Nancy's phone, I could only go and wait for her downstairs at her house in person. But Nancy wasn't at home. I just sat downstairs at her house. I waited from afternoon to evening, and from evening to late at night. As time passed bit by bit, I wasn't so anxious anymore. After my mood calmed down, I slowly thought of many details. It turns out that the friend and family member she mentioned who was abroad that day was her twin sister, right? It's just that she has never taken the initiative to mention that she has a sister for so many years. But thinking about it carefully, after all, she is from a single-parent family. There must be many things that are hard to talk about. And at that time, her gracefulness was all because she had a clear conscience, but I thought she was an excellent actress. I'm so damn stupid. It wasn't until 11 o'clock at night that I saw Nancy's figure at the corner. I immediately rushed up. Nancy. When Nancy saw me, she was first shocked, then angry, and turned around to leave. I grabbed Nancy and walked in front of her. Nancy, I was wrong. What happened that day was a misunderstanding. I had been misunderstanding you and my dad. As soon as I knew the truth today, I came to find you immediately. Nancy paused and looked at me coldly. I continued, Nancy, I'm really sorry. At that time, I saw an intimate photo of a woman and my dad. That person looked exactly like you. I thought you were two-timing. Only today did I know that you have a sister. Nancy folded her arms and let out a cold laugh. Ethan, you're an adult too. You see something and misunderstand it immediately. Can't you think with your brain? How have I treated you in the past 2 years? Don't you have even a little ability to judge right from wrong? If you had just asked me what was going on, would it have come to this today? Sorry, I was wrong. I apologized sincerely and carefully took hold of Nancy's wrist. Nancy, I was really wrong. This is my fault. I shouldn't have treated you like this without asking clearly. I shouldn't have misunderstood your feelings for me. Was that man that day also a misunderstanding? It's all my fault. I should have asked you first. Nancy glanced down at my hand gripping her wrist. With a calm expression, she pushed my hand away. It's in the past. I don't want to dwell on it anymore. After saying that, she walked around me and was about to leave. I quickly grabbed her again and doggedly blocked her way. Nancy, so you're not angry anymore? She paused and looked at me amusedly. Why get angry at yourself for someone else's mistake? Hearing her say that, the big stone in my heart finally fell. Scratching my head, I said, Nancy, actually, I've been extremely uncomfortable this month. In my heart, I really didn't believe you were such a person. It's all my fault for not finding out clearly. You and your sister are so alike that even my dad didn't recognize you. But do you know, when I found out the truth today, I was really happy that you're not this kind of person. You can punish me however you want in the future as long as you can forgive me. Nancy quietly looked at me for a moment. Her gaze was slow, almost looking at me from head to toe. That gaze didn't seem to be sizing me up but evaluating me as a person. After about half a minute, she finally said, Actually, after breaking up with you that day, I roughly guessed what was going on. I also called my sister and asked. She said she did have a relationship with an older man. After hearing her description, I basically determined it was your dad. I felt even more guilty and wanted to step forward. It's my fault for not thinking in that direction and not gathering evidence. But who would have thought that you and your sister are so alike, almost identical? I'm sorry. Nancy unobtrusively took a step back, widening the distance between us. My sister and I are indeed very similar among twins. It's understandable that you could misunderstand me, but do you know why, even though I guessed the truth, I didn't look for you again? I was stunned. Why? Nancy said firmly, I don't want to have any more entanglements with you. I thought she was still angry at my stupidity and pleaded, Nancy, it's all my fault. That day at the bar, I made you embarrassed. I will definitely change in the future. Can you give me another chance? I accept your apology. Nancy looked at me seriously, and every word fell clearly in my ears. I hate people who cheat the most in my life. My dad divorced my mom because of cheating and took my sister away. I detest my dad's behavior of finding women outside. I also hate all such families. Sorry, I can't be with you anymore. I eagerly wanted to explain but found myself at a loss for words. My dad did find someone outside behind my mom's back, and that person was even her sister. I looked into her calm eyes. Calm without joy or sorrow, and without the previous affection. The way she looked at me was no longer the same as before. Suddenly, I understood that she had made up her mind, and no amount of pleading would help. Nancy has always been calm. If she could say such words, she must have thought it through carefully. Finally, with red eyes, I said, "Anyway, Nancy, you are the girl I truly liked. Wish you happiness." After saying that, I turned and left. The night was long, and a heart-wrenching pain spread in my chest. This is my favorite girl. I don't want to end up in an ugly situation. Nancy and I, in this life, will stop here. I locked myself at home for 3 days in a row. Then I tidied myself up and went to work calmly. My dad also asked about me and Nancy. I just shook my head and told him, I don't deserve Nancy. That's it. My dad could only sigh repeatedly. It's all my fault for not finding out clearly. I've delayed you. I patted my dad on the shoulder and looked at the sunlight outside the window, shaking my head. It's all fate. One day, I suddenly received a text message from Nancy, "I'm getting married." My heart skipped a beat. I stared at the phone screen for a long time without reacting. But it felt as if a piece had been gouged out of my heart. There was no blood, but it was so suffocating that I couldn't catch my breath. After a long while, I replied with trembling hands, "So soon? Getting married?" In fact, after I sent it, I realized that it wasn't fast at all. That incident had passed 2 months ago. It was enough time for her to get to know someone new and start a new life. It's just that I've been living in the past. I was about to reply with "wish you happiness" when I found that she had blocked me. Originally, she just informed me. She didn't want to invite me. An indescribable sense of loss was like a swamp, devouring me little by little. But I really couldn't figure out who Nancy would marry. In the 2 years she was with me, there wasn't even a man she knew around, only a best friend. That night, with a heavy heart, I went to the bar where I first met Nancy to get drunk. Coincidentally, I met Nancy's best friend, Xiaoyu. She was happily chatting with the bartender. As if by some strange impulse, I walked over and greeted Xiaoyu. "Xiaoyu, long time no see." Seeing me, Xiaoyu's eyes immediately became very complicated, with some pity and some helplessness. "Ethan, it's you. Are you here alone to drink to drown your sorrows? I just saw you and wanted to ask. I heard that Nancy is getting married." Xiaoyu immediately understood what I wanted to inquire about and sighed. "After Nancy broke up with you, she was very sad. Then I took her shopping and she bought a lot of things. She changed her outfit and style. But unexpectedly, later she met her current husband. The two hit it off and have a good relationship." "Oh, right. In fact, you've met him before. I heard that last time, you had a conflict with him in this bar." I suddenly realized. It was that tall and handsome guy. Indeed, he is very excellent and responsible. At that time, I sarcastically said that Nancy was too timing. But he didn't react at all at that time. It can be seen that he trusts Nancy very much. After all, I don't deserve Nancy. Drinking alone until early morning, after walking out of the bar, I looked at the fading night scene and finally gradually let go. I sent Nancy a text message that she was destined not to receive, "Wish you happiness." This is my last apology and wish for her. After sending it, I completely deleted Nancy's number. Just like closing a door of my heart. From then on, we won't disturb each other. Such a good girl like her will definitely be happy. After that, I became an ordinary single person again. Working from 9 to 5, resting on weekends, lying flat and being mediocre. No future ahead.